This might be familiar to you. Have you ever been intimate with someone and felt so close to them in the moment, and then, almost immediately after, had a creeping anxiety that had nothing to do with what just happened? Like the connection opened something up, and now you need something to close it again, like a word or a gesture, some kind of confirmation that what just happened meant the exact same thing to them as it meant to you. And then, when you don't get it, or you can't stop yourself from looking at it, there's this horrible familiar feeling, like you're too much, you're too needy, you're too loud in a room that's suddenly really quiet. If any of that sounds familiar, today's video is for you. Hi, I'm Cyndi Darnell, sex and relationship therapist, and I work with all kinds of people in all kinds of relationship configurations all over the world. On this channel, we talk about sex, desire, intimacy, and the business of relationships, honestly, practically, and without shame. If you're new here, welcome. And if you've been here a while, thank you so much for being part of this conversation. If anything I share today resonates with you, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. I have a lot more information coming this year, and I don't want you to miss any of it. So, what is anxious attachment, and where does it come from? Before I describe what anxious attachment typically looks like, I want to say something that I say at the start of every video in this particular series. Attachment theory is a framework, a useful and well-researched framework, but ultimately an incomplete lens for understanding how we relate to each other. These are not diagnoses, they're patterns. And every pattern described in this series developed for a reason. It wasn't a flaw, it's an adaptation. It's a reasonable response to the emotional environment you were raised in. So if you recognize anxious patterns in yourself, that recognition, it's not a diagnosis, it's information. And with that said, anxious attachment typically develops when early caregiving was inconsistent, not necessarily harsh, not neglectful necessarily, just unpredictable, sometimes warm and available, sometimes distracted and withdrawn. And as children, we do what we always do. We adapt. The adaptation in this case is hypervigilance. If love is inconsistent, the most logical response is to monitor it closely, to stay attuned to every shift in the other's mood, to turn up the volume on attachment signals, to become more expressive, more urgent, more present, in the hope that this will bring the closeness back. Think of this as a hyperactivated attachment pattern. Instead of toning down the need for connection when attunement is present, the nervous system amplifies it, looking for constant reaffirmation that everything is okay. And when this pattern was being laid, vigilance and scanning for stability was what worked best. So it stuck. That strategy is actually really intelligent. It was also, in all likelihood, exhausting. And the problem is that it tends to keep running within us long after the original environment is gone. So how does this show up in sex and in our sexual relationships? Sex for someone with an anxious attachment pattern is rarely just sex. And to be fair, sex is rarely just sex for any of us. But this is especially true for people who experience a lot of anxiety during partnered sex. For anxious people, sex can often be a bid for reassurance, a way of feeling close when words and emotions feel too risky. Perhaps it's proof of desirability, of being chosen, of mattering to someone, of feeling special. And when sex is good, there's closeness, responsiveness, and genuine presence. It can feel intoxicating, almost overwhelming, because it's meeting something within us that's very, very deep. But the aftermath, that can be treacherous, because the intimacy that felt so connecting in the moment can leave an emotionally anxious person feeling exposed and uncertain. The question underneath everything we just did that mean the same thing to you? Sexual anxiety can often lead people to find themselves using sex to manage the uncomfortable emotions of insecurity rather than what we are told sex is supposed to be for, things like desire, connection, longing, and love. They might find themselves initiating not because they genuinely want to, but because they need to feel something more, wanted, validated, needed, seen, or maybe agreeing to things they don't really want because saying no feels too risky, staying quiet about what they actually enjoy because keeping the peace of being chosen by the other feels more important than being known. This is a type of self-abandonment, and it's one of the most significant and least talked about costs of anxious attachment in a sexual context. The gradual erosion of your own desire, of your own voice, your own experience, in service of managing someone else's. And when a partner's desire naturally wanes, as everyone's does in long-term relationships, it can feel catastrophic, not just disappointing, catastrophic, because somewhere underneath, the anxiously attached person has learnt to read physical withdrawal as emotional abandonment. So next I want to talk about a pattern that comes up constantly in my work, and that has become almost a cultural shorthand for romantic suffering, and it's the anxious-avoidant dynamic. Anxiously and avoidantly attached people are, paradoxically, powerfully drawn to each other. The anxious person's hunger for closeness fits almost perfectly against the avoidant person's discomfort with it, and vice versa. Sexually, this dynamic can produce an almost addictive intensity. The anxious partner pursues and the avoidant retreats. The distance creates the longing creates more pursuit, and then when the avoidant partner finally comes back, the relief is so acute, it can feel like love. But here's what's actually happening. The anxious person's nervous system was dysregulated by the withdrawal, and now being briefly soothed by their return. And that relief is real. But it isn't evidence of compatibility. It's evidence of two nervous systems that have found a way to fit each other's patterns. The chemistry in an anxious-avoidant dynamic is often intense and real, but it's powered by anxiety, not by genuine safety. And learning to tell the difference is one of the most important things an anxiously attached person can do. I want to share a story with you about Priya. Priya came to see me after the end of a 3-year relationship. She'd spent much of those 3 years in a low-grade state of anxiety, checking her phone, replaying conversations, asking friends whether they thought she was too much. The sex in her relationship had been significant to her, not just physically, but emotionally. After they were intimate, she would often feel a rush of happiness followed immediately by dread. What if this was the last time? What if he's pulling away? She developed a habit of initiating sex when she felt distant from her partner, even though she didn't really want it. It was the fastest way she knew to feel close. And then if he declined, even gently, and for entirely normal and reasonable reasons, she would spend days trying to work out what she had done wrong. Priya came to understand that her adapted self had learnt to prioritize connection above everything, including her own desire, her own comfort, and her own truth. She had become so skilled at tuning into her partner's needs that she had almost completely lost access to her own. And the work wasn't about needing less connection. It was about learning that she was allowed to have needs too, and that a relationship where she had to erase herself to feel loved wasn't the kind of closeness worth keeping. The goal wasn't to stop wanting connection, but instead to want it from a place that didn't require her to disappear. Okay, a quick pause here. If you're finding this useful, a like really does help this content to reach more people who need it. And if you want to go further with any of this, head on over to my website, cyndidarnell.com. I have online courses there that go deep into understanding your body, your desire, and your relationship. And I want to point you to the next video in this series about avoidant attachment and sex, which directly connects with what we're covering today. I'm going to link it in the description below. If you recognize yourself in any of what we're talking about here, please hear this first. Anxious attachment is not a character flaw. It's an adaptation that made complete sense in the environment where it developed. Your nervous system did its job. It just hasn't yet received the signal that the job has changed. The most significant shift for anxiously attached people, particularly around sex, is learning to become a reliable source of safety for yourself. Not to stop needing connection, because connection is a very reasonable and valid thing to want. Instead, the quest is to develop enough of an internal anchor or an internal compass that the need for reassurance from a partner isn't the only thing keeping you regulated and stable. This means learning to notice the hyperactivating response, the urgency, the pursuit, the impulse to reach for sex or reassurance as a way of managing anxiety, and pausing before you act on it, not suppressing it, just creating a moment of awareness first, and then steadiness, and then choice. It also means slowly, carefully, getting to know your own desire again. What do you actually want? What does your body want? Separate from what you think will keep someone close. And that's not a trivial question. For many anxiously attached people, that's the beginning of everything. The goal is not to want connection less. Remember this. It's to want it from a steadier and more grounded place within yourself. Anxious attachment in a sexual relationship, it can be exhausting, mostly for the person who's living it. That constant reading of signals, the aftermath of intimacy that should feel good, but somehow can even feel frightening, and the way desire and anxiety get tangled up until you just can't tell them apart. But that exhaustion is also useful information. It's your nervous system doing exactly what it learned to do, trying to secure connection by turning up the volume as loud as it can go. You're not broken, and you're not too much. You're someone whose adapted self learnt to work very hard for love. And now you get to decide whether that's the job you still want to be doing. And the good news is that what was learnt with time and the right conditions can be gently unlearned. The next episode is about avoidant attachment, and if you've ever been with someone who seems to pull away the closer you get, or if you recognize those patterns in yourself, that one will be illuminating. If you want to go deeper with any of this, I have 2 places to point you. My book, Sex When You Don't Feel Like It, The Truth About Mismatched Libido and Rediscovering Desire, is available now. The link is in the description below. And if you're ready to do the work, head to cyndidarnell.com. I have online courses there that go deep into understanding your body, your relationships, and your desire wherever you're starting from. Don't forget to check out the next video in this series, which explores why closeness can feel like a threat and what to do about it. It's also linked below. If this was useful, please like this video. It genuinely helps more people find it. And subscribe if you haven't already. Like I said, I have a lot more coming for you this year. Please take care of yourselves and take care of your bodies. They really, truly are doing their best.